Well, Steve wants to do all the things for all the right reasons.
He is a friend, a mentor, someone who I incredibly look up to.
When you're wearing an FIU pin in Washington's airport, somebody's bound to ask you how Steve Sauls is doing.
I don't have enough fingers on my hands to identify all of Steve Sauls' accomplishments. First of all, Steve has forgotten more about higher education politics than most of us will ever know. Steve is highly respected in Tallahassee. He's highly respected in Washington. When Steve walks in, people know that they're dealing with somebody who's been there before. They know that there's an adult in the house. We did not have, prior to his arrival at the university, professionals who were seasoned to work on our Washington and Tallahassee policy agenda. We had some good people, but really seasoned people. So Steve built our government affairs capability.
So Steve has had a say in almost every single piece of major change, positive change that has happened in FIU over his career. He can look at an issue from 30,000 feet and say, okay, so-and-so is coming from this way and that way and this and that. And so he really is able to quarterback an issue.
Steve stood very tall on the whole issue related to our College of Law. There he was, building the necessary coalitions behind the scenes, paving the way. He was critical to our College of Medicine initiative. Steve gave us credibility with a lot of politicians at the local and national scene with whom he had worked.
When I first met Steve, it was at the Democratic annual dinner, somewhere in Miami Beach at a hotel, doing what I had to do to get to know my fellow members because I was still in the middle of a speaker's race. And so Steve had been recommended to me. And, I was impressed with his knowledge of who was who in the state. So he was a good person for me to use as a sounding board. Steve is a great person to have a long time friendship with. He's loyal, he's smart, he can move quickly. All the attributes you need when you're going after very challenging enterprises.
So I met Steve for the first time in a conference room in Tallahassee at FIU Day. And Steve walks in and gets all the students to give 15 to 20-second elevator pitches on the time it takes from the first floor to the fifth floor to give a legislator who's in the elevator with us the FIU spiel. And made us stand up in front of trustees and administrators and give this speech. It's a great way to meet Steve.
The first time I met Steve, I was a young, bright-eyed college student at Florida International University. And I entered into the president's office, had just gotten the job, and there I met a very tall, distinguished-looking man with a sweet mustache. And of course, as a political science major, I knew I wanted to know everything I could about what ticks in Steve Sauls' mind. He quickly became my mentor and has been my mentor for, I want to say, over 20 years.
I look at the creation of our internship program in DC as a very beautiful thing, not only for our team or our institution, but South Florida as a whole. That has allowed 36 young individuals now over the years to kind of make their break into Washington, D.C.
From the first day I met him, he told us about him being the editor of the independent Florida Alligator newspaper, and how since that day he was mentored by great people and he's tried to pay it back. So everyone I've met and most of my friends from student government and student life at FIU that have known Steve have called him a mentor, and he's really helped us from day one on how to polish ourselves, how to become adults.
He is a friend, a mentor, someone who over the years in my political life, I've sought out his advice on how to deal with issues, on whether or not to seek a different office, whether or not to seek higher office. Steve has always been part of that kitchen cabinet.
I am lucky and grateful to have your influence in my life as a boss and mentor and friend. I'm sure your long list of governmental successes and expansion triumphs will be trumpeted and celebrated today from respected, powerful people. As well they should be, but I want to relay a personal act of generosity, friendship, and kindness. Gifting a Cuban-American young man with a dream several high-end winter coats so that he wouldn't freeze his tail off in his first New York City winter. Yes, I still wear them, and no, you cannot have them back.
Of course, many people know Steve Sauls for having worked with senators, governors, presidents over the course of his career at this federal, state, and local level. But what many people don't realize is that this career actually started in the basement of the U.S. Capitol as an elevator attendant. Therein is one of the lessons that I've picked up from Steve, that in the world of advocacy, sometimes you just have to show up. And sometimes it even means working the elevator, to be near and around the center of power.
Steve taught me how to temper some of my political beliefs and ensure that I understood some of the ways to be a professional about being involved in governmental relations and supporting FIU, and personally how to just be a better person.
Now for me, I'm someone obviously that I talk a lot, I have my opinions, I give them out quickly, and I sometimes don't always have a filter. Steve has taught me that the filter is important, that one needs to sit back and reflect. He has a way of dealing with, like I say, Cuban girls from Kendall, that we're all loud and stressful, and coming up to him and this is the crisis of the moment. And he just brings us calm and peace, says put things in perspective, it's gonna be okay. And they're always okay.
Steve is a lot more careful than I am. I think we're equally thorough. I think he sells a product in a different way than I do. I usually go in and just tell him, I'm right, do it, or we have a problem. And so Steve helped me on those skills to get together some very convincing arguments to lots of people.
Well, I mean, Steve's a Gator, and he's from Central Florida, and Central Florida is very Gator-centric, but I think Steve identifies with our students. That's the most important thing. Steve is passionate about our students, and he wants to help. Steve loves the community because of its energy and its diversity and its vibrancy and its hope. And that's really Steve Sauls. I mean, those are the values that he carries with him. So it's only natural that he would identify with our university. It's only natural that he would bleed blue and gold.
One of his proudest accomplishments is one that was 30, 40 years removed, and not many people know of, but his work in Washington, not even knowing that this one piece of legislation that he was working on and affecting policy in many ways would have such a big impact on his future adoptive home of Miami and his future adopted family members, those of us of Cuban descent. So that's beautiful, and we can say that South Florida is a more beautiful place because of that.
Steve at FIU has never been a Republican, a Democrat. He is apolitical. His party is FIU. And I think that it's that drive and that vision that leads other folks to respect his opinion, because they know that his opinion is not coming from a partisan view. His opinion is coming from what's best for FIU, and that is evident in the incredible results that he's been able to achieve.
I love the fact that Steve is so positive about our community. It's another beautiful morning in Miami. The Facebook posts.
I mean, he's the #1 Facebook and Twitter person that I follow. And if you want to know what FIU's doing, just follow Steve's Twitter account.
I'd like to say that Steve is one of the brains of FIU. And with it, he has one of the biggest hearts I know. He was always committed to understanding that we needed to help those in Miami, those people in Miami that wanted to get a higher education. And he knew that FIU could play that role.
I think Steve's greatest legacy is his belief that FIU was more than just the small school in Miami. He taught us all to fight for more, to argue for what we deserved, and to be better. But mostly, I think it's all the students who've been here. I think that'll be his greatest legacy of how many of the students will never know his name but will be touched by the things he did.
He helped to build this place. As I look around the campus, he, like Paul Gallagher and like Mitch Maydeek, there isn't much around this campus that Steve Sauls hasn't touched and had an impact on and helped to bring about and dreamed about and worked hard for and sweat for. So, I mean, Steve is through and through a Panther.